All right, welcome back to another episode of the Outcast Hunting Podcast. I got a special treat for you today. I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Mr. Zane Linzy. Zane, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good. Been excited to get you on and share your story. You have a very interesting story about, when was this? When did you kill this deer?
This was 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. No, it was last year. Last year.
Gotcha. Time, it really runs together, don't it?
Yeah, I work on the road.
Especially when we work as hard as you do.
Oh, yeah, I travel all the time, so it just flies by.
Yeah. Well, I remember seeing this on Facebook and thinking like, man, this is a good deer. But it's what happened before you killed the deer that's very interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get into that in just a little bit. First, I want to ask you a question and just kind of give a backstory. Like, how long have you been hunting? Who introduced you to the outdoors, to deer hunting, and what's your upbringing been like as far as things concerned?
So I would say my granddaddy, which is what this is.
This is pretty interesting too. When you came in with this, I thought, oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is probably the big thing that got me really wanting to kill deer. Mm-hmm. I seen this deer when I was a young kid, and I was like, daggum, maybe one day I can kill something like this. But at that time, I didn't realize that's probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity there around here.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, up in Illinois or Iowa, you go up there, you see stuff that's funky looking, and because you got soybeans. And,
can I hold it up for the camera?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Soybeans and all that. So, I've always loved this deer. It's probably my favorite mount in the house. And it's a lot of sentimental to that.
Absolutely.
Because he taught me a lot off of how he did that. So,
I'm really excited to hear about this.
So that's probably my favorite story over that one. And it's not really just because, that's my granddaddy, you know, that's the one that showed me a lot. He didn't show me everything, because he's way older, so it kind of fell off and he couldn't go with me. It went from him taking me to me going by myself and me having to tell him the story when I got back. So
that's awesome. Well, tell this story because I'm kind of dying to hear this. So you're introduced to the outdoors mainly by your granddaddy. Went hunting with him a lot, and he shared this memory with you. What is the story that goes behind this deer?
So we have some property he bought a long time ago. I think he paid $100 an acre for it. Like, it was that long ago, and it was like 102 acres. So it's not really a lot of land per se, but it's enough.
Can you say where it was at, or would you?
Yeah, so it was killed in Brooklyn, Alabama, which is close to Boggs and Boulders. It's 5 minutes from Boggs and Boulders, actually. So it's off behind where all that hoorahing is going on over there. So, and it was there at that time, I believe. So then deer had got used to hearing all that stuff. So he really just walked around nonchalantly. Around here, closer to where we're at, the deer's more pressured. He never really pressured these deer. So people go in and they constantly chase this one buck, and you go in, you blow them all out. Like, if you blow them too many times, they're going to try to venture off, is what I've kind of learned. They're going to go to a different blocker where they're not having to worry about somebody walking in on them every day. So, and he never did that. He would time it off of, he was big into the Farmer's Almanac, believe it or not. So he'd read that, and he could determine his next year off of that Farmer's Almanac of how the weather was going to be or how the farming was going to be, and that would base it off of what he planted that next year. So, and he always took a coffee can of corn because, nowadays, I say it's over corn, but it really wasn't. So nowadays people go out and dump a 50-pound bag of corn, and these deer come in, eat whenever they want to. They're not having to follow a routine. They come out with some this new feeder where you could set it to when it opens.
Yes.
Yeah, you know
what
I'm
I
talking
priced
about?
one of those yesterday.
Yeah. I priced it too and quickly exited out of it.
Same. They were on sale for like $500.
I think it was something like
$450, $500 on sale.
Yeah, you could set it to where they fed at 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, then deer start realizing, and then you start having more come out, which is, I see a lot of that on TV, They're hunting over that kind of stuff. If you just kind of scan around, they kind of right past it, so you don't see it. But if you really pay attention, that's what they have out there. So he did it before any of this was invented with a coffee can. He would take half a coffee can out there and dump it out, in the morning times or right at dark or lunch.
When he went hunting?
Yeah, whenever he decided to. It was mainly when he went hunting. Whenever he decided to go, that's when he'd dump it out. And he pretty much stayed on the right schedule. So if he went in the mornings, it was about 7 o'clock. He didn't get in there before daylight. Or he didn't get in there at 12 o'clock in the day, during the middle of the day. He would go in there at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and sit until dark. With him doing the coffee can thing, it set these deer on a pattern. So they would always come out at 7:15, 7:30 in the morning, or they would come out and they would come and check it again at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was like that. And he had been doing that for 5 years probably with that coffee can. Because them deer's trying to rush out there and get that little bit of corn.
So he has trained those deer to know that when he's on that property, he is coming with some corn, and it's very little. So you better get out there and get it right now.
Yeah, you better get it when you can. And it's just like these feeders they got nowadays.
So would he try to be loud, letting the deer know that he was there?
No, he would want you to be just as quiet as possible. He didn't want them to know, but it was kind of. So there was one doe. I remember this one doe, and she was out there every morning and every afternoon. And I feel like that doe was kind of like, hey, there's food out here. Mm-hmm. And more deer started following her. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It's just what I picked up. You might see it at a different perspective than I do. But I know there was one doe that I seen every time I went.
Yeah.
And then one day she just disappeared. I guess it was old age. I guess it got her, but like I said, it's kind of crazy. And what really made me think about this, I wasn't even going to bring this.
I'm glad you did.
So I wasn't even going to bring this, but I had watched a video of them feeders, and I got to thinking about it. And then I walked by this buck this morning, actually, hanging on the wall. And I was like, daggum, I was thinking about it. I drove to Saraland this morning. I was thinking about it all morning. I was like, surely... what? And then I seen the video of the feeder. I was like, he did that with a coffee can. Like, he didn't need all this technology. Mm-hmm. And I kind of do that now. I don't try to go out and buy these cell cameras, or I don't buy these fancy feeders. Like, I have a gravity feeder made out of a piece of 6-inch pipe that I got from work. It's not about, everybody wants to be all fancy. Like, I get it. You want the nice stuff, and that's fine. And they want the nice camouflage, the Sitka and all that stuff.
There's a lot of marketing when it comes to hunting.
Yes, absolutely. And you don't need that.
Right.
You're going to hear it in this story. You don't need all that stuff to make you a good hunter. That is not it. Mm-hmm. I'm no pro hunter. I've messed up my fair share of times, and I'm going to in the future. And that's just like anybody else. But you live and you learn. I learn something every time I go.
I definitely think you're onto something with the feeders. So I can't remember if I talked about this in the podcast already before, but there was a couple years ago that I had this spot that I know there was deer in the area. And turns out there was a lot more deer in the area than what I thought. But I had one of those sling feeders. And it would go off, and I'd had it in there for 2 or 3 years. And I would always get does, same does like you're talking about. And, the occasional bucks would come in. And it was only one buck. And I got to thinking, like, that spot just isn't producing. I'm just going to take that feeder out, but I'll put it somewhere else. And I can't remember why I did it. But the corn that was in the feeder, there was just a little bit left. I just dumped it out. And for some reason, I left my trail camera in there. I don't remember why. And I started getting pictures of bucks coming in, eating that corn that I poured out. I thought, now, why would they come in there now, but they wouldn't come in there when the feeder was in place? And I really think it's that racket, that bell sound that it was making when it was doing the slinging. And I think it scared them.
So yeah, it's gonna kind of go with that story. What you just said is kind of gonna go with that story of my deer that I killed.
The
So-
next day, I sold those feeders.
Oh,
I
yeah,
put them
they-
on Marketplace, and somebody came and got them, and I've stayed away from it. Now, gravity feeders, sure, and but yeah. What was the story that was there any kind of special hunt? Tell me every detail about this deer coming out.
Okay, so I don't know. This is my granddaddy. So I was real young when this buck.
Because, by the way, this is what we started Outcast for. Stuff like this, for people to share their stories, and I think this is an awesome one for you to come bring it on the podcast and share it, because it's very sentimental. I'm excited that you brought this.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So it gets kind of funny because you just have to know my granddad. So I was really young. I was back and forth, down there in a way. It was just kind of crazy. So I go to his house to see him one day, and I see this set of horns, and I'm like, "Dadgum, Papa, what in the heck happened? Like, I ain't been gone long. What have I ain't seen these before?" He said, "Well, boy, you just gotta know it. Well, boy," I said, "This ought to be good, There ain't no telling what he's gonna say." Well, my granddaddy is a woman lover. Like, it's just, he is that guy, He had 2 or 3 girlfriends. He'd be on the phone with them out there in the yard. That's just how he was. Mm-hmm. Well, he had his girlfriend over at the time, and they went hunting. Well, every time they would go hunting, they would see a deer. Each time she went, the deer kept getting bigger and bigger. Well, the 3rd time they went, this is when this one was killed. And he said, "I'm going to tell you something." He said, "I dealt with her for the next 3 years just because I killed that buck."
A good luck charm.
Oh, yeah. He said, "I dealt with her all year long just so I could see more deer the next year." I said, "Yeah, that's about right,
That's
right
funny.
there."
That's funny. Did he shoot it with a rifle or bow or what?
Yes,
Rifle?
I actually have the rifle. It's a Remington 742 243. He never shot a big
243.
rifle. 243.
Hey, I love that. I still shoot my 243.
Oh, I got a 223, and you can kill anything around here. You don't need no big rifle around here unless you go to a power line. In my opinion, a 223 will kill any animal here, and it's an all around good rifle because you can kill hogs with it.
Especially if you know how to aim and where to shoot.
Yes.
And you're a good shot with it.
Yes.
And I was shocked at this. So let me preface this story by saying I didn't realize how far the deer was at the time. If I'd have known when I shot this deer how far it was, I probably wouldn't have taken the shot, considering I was shooting a 243. But it was a couple years ago. I'm at a clear cut. I see a doe moving through in the morning. Right behind her is a buck, a really nice 6-point, tall brow tines. And I see it. I immediately knew I was going to shoot, get the gun out the window. And I shoot, he drops. I thought, wow, that's nice. And he was kicking around, so I did a follow-up shot just to end it quickly. And I had my rangefinder with me. And I went to the deer. I was in a tall shooting house when I shot this deer. And I ranged the shooting house as I was standing over the deer, and it was 248 yards with a 243.
That's big for around here anyway. Unless you're hunting in a cotton field, that's a long shot.
It is.
You don't really see that many food plots. Around here, it's usually 100, 125 yard long food plots. That's about average.
That's right.
So those, and I talk about hunting and guns all the time, and my stepdad actually told me this. So I always tell some people, like, when you need this 300 Win Mag to shoot these deer, to kill them and drop them, or they call it the 6.5 Creedmoor. We call it the Killmoor.
No.
See?
No. I used to have one, and that is terrible.
See, I love mine.
Really?
I had 2 of them, and I never had a problem. The only 6.5 I had a problem with is a Grendel, and that's what I killed that one with.
Really?
Yes, and I hated it. I hated the Grendel, but I love my Creedmoor.
It must come down to ammo. I don't know. I'm not very knowledgeable on the guns and ammo side of it as far as, what rounds to shoot. But I had a 6.5 Creedmoor. I shot at 3 deer with them, and found 2 of them, but every one of them was hard to find. Almost no blood. I didn't have good experience with it. And I'm a decent enough shot. I don't want to sound cocky because, like, I'm not a great shot, but I'm good enough that, like, I know I hit this deer, especially when you see them mule kick. And I ended up selling mine. But
So-
you have a different experience with it. And there's a lot of youth models that are 6.5 Creedmoor, right?
Yes. So another thing too, and I've kind of picked this up. My stepdad, they used to shoot tournaments, like long range tournaments, and he built a 6.5 Creedmoor. Well, people shoot at these deer at 60 yards. That bullet is flying.
Yes.
It's passing through so fast it can't do nothing.
That was my problem.
The kinetic energy of a 6.5 Creedmoor, the highest kinetic energy is like 500 yards. That's where its main knockdown power is. It's like 500 yards.
It's built for long distance.
Yes, really it is. So that's why I always say a 243 or 223, because those 60-yard shots, you know,
You have more hitting power.
That's your knockdown power right there. You're getting all of that 223 or all of that 243. That 6.5 Creedmoor, that 30-06, that 308, yeah, if you shoot them in the front shoulder and take their running gear out from up under them, they ain't going nowhere. Which, if you shoot them right behind the shoulder, it's going through so fast, that hole's so little. They're going to run. You know, it's going to take them a minute to bleed out. It don't matter if you lung shot them or not. If they're 30 yards, it's just, that's it. So it's all about shot placement. I could shoot you in the foot with a 30-06 and you wouldn't die. Shoot you in the head with a 22 and you're done.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
You're right.
It's all about shot placement, no matter what you shoot. You can go kill a deer with a 22 if you're, I hate to say this, but there's plenty of people that do it, you know, illegally, but they do it.
Yeah.
You know?
So there is this might be a stupid comparison, but to me, it really showed how fast the Creedmoor was humming. When I'm shooting the deer with this Creedmoor, and I think if I remember right, this was kind of the last straw for me, and like I knew that something was wrong with the gun, not me, or at least the way I was using the gun. I thought, I'm going to check this scope and make sure that it's not off. And the way I did this, I had an empty Coke can, just a regular Coke can. I set it on top of an ant bed. All right, and I'm at this field. I'm shooting, and I'm probably 50, 60 yards away, about what I was when I was shooting these deer, honestly. And I shoot. The can doesn't do anything. Now, I didn't put any water in the bottom of this or anything. Like a breeze could have.
Yeah, just an empty can.
Exactly.
Yeah, aluminum.
Exactly. And I shot, nothing. I thought, I missed that thing. I shoot again. Dadgummit, I missed. I shot 3 times. Every time I thought I missed, I go up to the can, and there are 3 bullet holes in it.
Little bee holes.
It is zooming so fast that it zipped right through that can and didn't even make it move. I'm thinking, that is my problem right there.
I would, if you're using a 30-06 or a 6.5 Creedmoor or a 7mm 08. My wife has a 7mm 08, and I love it. If she's not hunting, I'm using that one. And it's a Browning. I love that gun. And it's so light, it's wood stock, it's beautiful. I've always learned that if they're that close and I have that big of a gun, I'm eliminating the front shoulder. You know, because I don't want to take that chance of shooting that, even if I shoot that deer in the right behind the shoulder, and I nick a lung or whatever. If there's water close, that's what a deer does. He runs to the water.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it clots it. So, and they're going to get in there, and they're going to stick their nose up, and you're not going to see nothing but the tip of their horns and their nose. You'll lose that deer. So I would much rather lose that little bit of meat instead of wasting a whole deer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Perfect sense.
That's
actually how I found one of the deer. When there was no blood trail, there was a drainage, and I just followed the drainage and eventually ran into the deer. So.
It's crazy because everything we're talking about is going to lead up to my deer here.
Really?
Yeah, and it's all lining up. And
good.
you're going to see how you're going to be like, what the heck, you know?
This is good.
And I'm liable to get excited. So I'm liable to be over here talking with my hands because I was so astounded when I seen him. So
Do it. Get excited. Well, I want to hear it. Go ahead.
okay, so
Unleash on this story.
my
Don't leave any details out.
okay, well I'm gonna start about the summer before. So
Okay.
my father-in-law has 20 acres, and he has like this little 5-acre strip of trees that goes down into a bottom, and there's a creek running through the bottom. Well, there's a cow pasture on this side, and there's a thicket on this side. There's no that creek bottom is the thinnest thing there besides the cow pasture. So we're standing in the yard one day, and nobody's ever hunted this land. Nobody. So I'm like, and he's like, hey, boys, if y'all want to hunt this land, y'all can, which is me and my brother-in-law now. So I was like, yeah, I want to hunt it. I'm not going to turn that down.
Exactly.
I know if you ask me, if you say, hey, you can hunt my property, I'm going to hunt that property. It like anybody
You done messed
would.
up by inviting
Yeah,
me.
yeah. We're about to see what you got,
Yeah.
So I immediately, I think it was the next day, it's hot, it's 100 degrees outside. And where we walk down there, and from where their field is, it's probably 350 yards at like a slope downhill to that creek bottom where you can see off in there. I have a machete, and I cut this trail wide enough where I can carry 2 bags of corn, and it's thick through there. So I'm tired. Like it was worth it now, but at the time, I needed an inhaler or an oxygen tank. Like
I've been there. I know what you mean.
my wife was right behind me throwing limbs. She was excited to hunt it too.
Mm-hmm.
So we get down there, and I'm carrying a bag of corn with me the whole time. Like I'm not even wasting no time to throw it out. When I get to where I want to go, I'm gonna throw it out right then. I'm not gonna walk all the way back up this hill to get this bag of corn. So I'm like, I'll chop 15 yards. I'll turn around, and go get my corn, and bring it up there to me. So I throw this corn out, and it wasn't, I don't know, a day and a half probably later, and the corn's gone. I was like, oh no, oh no, like this can't be. It's too good to be true. I'm like, coons. The first thing that popped in my head.
You didn't have a camera on it?
No.
Okay.
I just put it out. I was gonna get them coming in, and then I was gonna put a camera out. And I didn't have a camera at the time. It was on some public land that I was trying to hunt. I have a buck that I've been trying to kill on public land too. He's crazy. I call him heart of stroke because I never about have one. I seen him twice, and I never had a heart of stroke both times. So, anyway, so I went and bought me some more cameras, and I went down there and I put them out and dumped out 2 bags of corn. I was like, I want to see how fast they eat it. I want to keep them in here as much as I can. I want them to know that there's going to be food here. Well, I think I went back and checked my cameras 4 days later, probably. I mean, 100 pounds of corn, surely it lasts 4 days, I had like 350 pictures. And I was like, oh my God, I'm clicking through there. Doe. And I'm like, and then coons. I was like, oh, I knew it, I was like, yeah, I knew this was too good to be true. Well, I clicked probably 50 more pictures, 5 bucks out of nowhere, and 2 of them shooters.
Remind me what time of year this is.
So by the time all this happens, by the time I look through all these pictures, this is probably going into, I'll say early summer. It was toward the beginning. It's probably 2 weeks before bow season.
Okay.
All this. When I say early
So
summer, this is
up.
early summer for me because I got home from working on the road. I was excited to be home. So this was the beginning of my summer. It's the end of y'all's. So y'all's getting ready to go back to school and stuff.
Yes.
But anyways, this is probably 2 weeks before bow season. And I'm excited now. I got 4 cameras up now in different angles trying to figure out these deer, where they're coming from. Now it's getting down to a game plan. And I have deer just coming from everywhere. And I'm trying to figure out where to put a stand up without, when I walk in there, are they going to blow? Am I going to jump them? Because I have one way in. There's no other way for me to get into this spot. And I find my tree, and I put it up. And where I cut the road in is directly down the middle of this 5 acres. Like, I didn't do it off the edge. It was directly down the middle. And because that was the thinnest spot. And I find this tree probably 15 yards off my walking trail to the left. And it's probably 35 yards from where I'm feeding my deer at. And, well, the first morning I go, we're going to move forward to bow season. I didn't go to work. I got called to go to work, and I did not go. I couldn't handle it. And it was a good paying job, and I work shutdown. So you take it when you get it.
So
and
they've been consistent
yeah,
all the way up through here.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
just waiting on opening day.
Yeah, I'm just waiting on opening day. They're in there. I got 3 of them daylighting. At the time, I think it's 7 o'clock aroundish when it starts getting shooting light, somewhere around in there. It changes every year, I swear, because I don't know, it's just weird. But about 7-ish, I got 3 coming in, and one of them I want to kill. He's a real tall 9. And anyway, so I'm hunting this deer, and I go, first morning I walk in there. I blow a doe walking in. I said, Seen her in my light. I mean, she was 10 yards from me. And I usually turn my light off about halfway down the trail. I got it flagged with like caution tape, so I know where to go. And I heard something rustle. You're walking at night. You're like, I got to see what that is. It might be a possum. But I turn around and look, and she's sitting there just looking at me. And I was like, oh, what'd I do? I just froze with the light in her eyes because I know a deer like freeze if the light's in their eyes. So I'm standing there just as still as I can be. Well, finally she just and blows and runs off, runs right toward the corn pile. I was like, oh, geez. Should I go in? Should I not? Anyway, so I go off in there and sit down, and this happens every time I walk in. There's no other way for me to go in, and it ain't like I'm hunting it every day. My only wind is like a south wind, maybe a southeast if I'm lucky.
So you have to hunt that early season. Because
yes.
As the season gets on, our predominant wind is going to be a north wind.
Yes, and it's going to get crazier when it comes down to this. So I hunt these 2 deer all year. I leave and go to work, and I'm driving 6 hours back home just to check my trail cameras. Like, I need to know what these deer are doing. I drive home every other weekend. My wife carrying 100 pounds of corn down there.
Oh.
To feed these deer.
That's funny.
And I even told her, I was like, if you keep doing it, I'll give you $100 every time you feed these deer, Mm-hmm. And I was like, and you can just do whatever you want to go on a trip. I don't care, but I got to keep these deer in here. Because back behind that property is like some lease land. So I know these deer are coming from over there. And then the people beside me don't hunt. There's a cow pasture, and he hunts a little bit. So I had a little competition, but the people behind me, they didn't hunt close to the property line. I know the deer travel, a deer run 15 miles after one doe, which is just crazy. I'm not doing that, but anyway, so I do this all year. I'm driving 6 hours just to check trail cameras and try to pattern these deer. Every now and then my wife will go down there and I'll tell her to go get the card and send me pictures. And I don't know how much money I spent in corn just trying to keep the deer there. Like, yeah, people's going to say it's cheating. You're hunting over corn. Everybody's hunted over corn. It's just a way to keep your deer in there.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, I always say here in the South especially, you kind of have to,
yes,
or you're putting yourself at a disadvantage.
Yes, I don't do it
in most spots.
Yeah, you don't do it on public land. Like, I don't do that. That's why I kind of took that up a couple of years ago, because a little bit more challenging, especially now. He's my biggest one, and he's no monster to some people, but to me, he's huge, and I love him. So it was a 9-point I was after, and then a wide 8. Not him. It was a different one. He was actually another one I was after. That 8 had a lot more mass. So I was having the time of my life chasing these deer. I didn't worry about. I got the land where this one's killed. Like, there's good bucks over there. Mm-hmm. And I have a huge one over there that I don't know what it was. I like a typical deer. I don't really like. I would shoot this. Don't get me wrong, but a typical wide deer with a pretty rack is what I like. Uh, some people like them non-typical where you got drop tines everywhere, and one day my time will come where I get to kill one with a drop tine. But a typical deer is what I really love. Lee off of Seek One.
We talk about Lee on Seek One all the time.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like every episode we say his name.
What was that? It was a 180-inch 8-point he killed that typical
Yes.
behind us. Oh my gosh, dude, loved it. I was
Yes.
like, please, one day,
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to find this dude, and he's about to tell me where this is at. He chases deer everywhere, but anyway, so it comes down to I go to work and I'm working in Cherokee. Well, I had one more day. I had an emergency job. I had to hit. It was one more day, and I was going to get right back after it. 2 hours before this emergency job's over, I cut my finger off at work. And I'm in the emergency room, and I had to have surgery the next day. So, like, this is the first thing I said when I cut my finger off was I cut my trigger finger off. It wasn't even it wasn't even about the finger. I was like, I can't shoot deer now. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I actually told the doctor, I was like, hey, can you build it up where I can still reach the trigger? Like, that's all I'm caring about right now. And he tries to build it up, still can't reach the trigger. To this day, I can't reach it. It's still too short. It just hits the back of the trigger guard. So I had to use my middle finger to shoot deer now.
That's funny.
And we're sitting there. It's a week after my surgery. I'm swole up and it's bandaged up. It's huge. It's blue. I'm in a pair of blue jeans, some square-toed boots, some wood bottoms.
In a tree stand?
No. Well, yeah, this is what I wear to the tree stand.
Oh, okay.
I'm just sitting in the house at this point, watching Seek One. Like, I'm watching Lee. Like, and I'm in this, just my camouflage hoodie, and I'm sitting there with my father-in-law. And it's like 3:15-ish. And I look at him. I was like, I want to go hunting. I was like, I can't climb up the ladder stand and hold my gun. So, like, you're going to have to take me down there. So he's like, well, boy, you better hurry up. So I grabbed my 6.5 Grendel. It was an AR. I just got it. It had a little Bushnell scope on it. It wasn't nothing fancy. And I was like, if I don't go down there, this will be the time he comes in. Well, I get in there, and he brings me my gun. It's 3:30 at this point. Like, it don't take long from where he lives at to where we're going. And it takes longer to walk there than it does to drive the side-by-side up there to where we're going. And anyways, he says, all right, I got to go to town. I'll come help you when it gets dark. I said, okay. I'm sitting there. About 2 weeks prior to that moment of me sitting in that stand, I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but I heard an old man talking to me, or I had an old man talking to me at work. And now this is during rut. This is on the 25th of January. Like, we're rut, End of rut, or rut is really mid-January, end of January, 1st February, around here. So he said he had a doe come in on him, and a young buck, like a little knotty head buck. It wasn't a big buck. Well, he was sitting there, and the little buck was acting up. They try to bounce around and be all bad sometimes. Well, he just stuck his head up under this doe. And this wasn't his mama. He said this was just a little buck, probably 3-inch spikes. He said he stuck his head up under like he was milking. And he said that right after this spike done this, a big buck come out. Like, that little buck was saying, hey, I don't want to fight. Like, I'm little, don't bother me. This unfolded right in front of my eyes. Like, I didn't believe this guy because I meet people all the time that blow smoke up my rear, and it's stuff sometimes you just don't believe, This unfolded right in front of me. And I'm sitting there thinking about it the whole time. I was like, what in the heck, This doe comes out and she's feeding. Well, then I hear a little soft grunt and this little spike comes out, I'm excited. Like, even a spike. A doe I get doe fever. I shake when a doe walks out. Some people say it don't bother them. I shake more when a doe comes out than I do a little buck or whatever, because that can ruin your whole hunt. That doe right there can ruin your whole entire hunt, because they're just, I've had bad luck with does. So anyways, I'm sitting there, and it's this little old 3-inch spike comes out, and he's kind of grunting and putting on a little show, and he just stops and just right up under. I said, what in the heck's going on here, Well, it just pops up, and what this old man told me, and I hear another grunt. But I have twin spikes in there, so I'm thinking that maybe it's this other little spike coming in. And I have this little row, so 40 yards maybe in front of me is where they're feeding. Well, there's this little strip, and it's like a sandbar over there by this creek. And I was like, daggone, that thing sounds big. And I couldn't see, and I'm kind of trying to be still and ease around and try to see this, whatever this is. I didn't know. This buck was never on camera. Never, not once. Never seen this buck. He walked out, and I remember I didn't even look at his horns. I said, I don't know what this is, but it looks like a moose, and I'm about to kill it. And I think I seen the white tips this side over here, because he was kind of coming from the cow pasture, which is on my left. And I think I seen the white tips through the scope just to get on him. Like, it was just that quick. Pow, shot. I was like, by this time I know I done shot a buck, So
Now, how did you shoot?
like this. Like,
Okay.
And what's
your
crazy,
hand's swollen too, right?
Yes, yeah. So it's wrapped up. Like, it's probably this big. So I'm having to, like, shoot like this. So, like, I got the bullet flies out.
So you're not really squeezing the trigger.
I'm just pulling
it.
it. Like, it was weird.
Mm-hmm.
The bullet flies out of this AR. It's an AR platform gun, so it shoots out the side and hits me on the end of the finger. And I didn't even think about the shot immediately. It was, my finger hurts. Like, it was that quick. And I'm sitting there like this, and then it just hits me. And I'm like, I just shot a buck deer. I got to call my wife. My wife's at work. Now, I got in there and was sat down. He was out. It was probably 3:30, 3:35 by the time he got out. My father-in-law, from putting me in the stand.
Mm-hmm.
I called my wife at 4:10. That's how quick all this happened. At 4:10, I'm calling my wife. She's at work. And I was like, hey, I just killed a buck. I was like, I can't get down because I'm going to fall. Like, I'm shaking that bad. Like, I was so excited. I was like, this is the biggest buck I ever killed in my life. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I'm proud of you. I got to go. I'm at work. I was like, well, who else am I going to call, Yeah, I was like, yeah, I'll call my father-in-law, So that's what I did. I was like, hey, I just shot a buck. He was like, how? He's like, I just made it to town. He's like, I'm not going to be back till, like, after dark. So in my head, I'm like, okay, my wife's at work. It gets dark at 5. He's not going to be back until after dark. Like, all my friends are at work. Like, most of my friends work on the road too, so they're all gone. I have nobody to call. I can't pull nothing, So I was like, I need to get down. I need to at least find him before it gets dark. So I pulled all the clip out of my gun and all that because I couldn't get down. I had to use one hand going up the ladder. And I just tossed the gun off the side. I'll worry about the gun later. I unloaded it, made sure it was decently safe. It probably wasn't my smartest move. Mm-hmm. But I climbed down, and you always take your gun with you when you go look for a deer, right? And just in case, unless, especially if you ain't got good blood, always take your gun. I didn't even think about it. I just left it there. It was still in the bushes.
I've been there.
I'm just excited. Like, I'm all over myself. So, anyways, I go down there to where I think I shot this deer at. I'm excited. I see it everywhere. Like, everything looks the same at this point. And I was like, daggum, I don't see no blood. And I was like, I got to do something. And I'm walking this creek. I passed this deer 4 times. He had went into the creek, and his horns was stuck down in the sand with his head between his front legs, and he looked like a log. I walked by him 4 times. Well, I'm 30 yards away from him when I see him because I was like, sure, I didn't ever hear him get out of the creek. You know, at this point, everything's running through my mind. Like, what did I do? What did I hear? Where was I at? So I just kind of looked down the creek, and there he is. I was like, oh, yeah, you know. I feel like I could have run a marathon. I was so happy. Like, I just could have go. I just went. And I jumped down this creek. And it's cold. You know, it's January. I jumped down this creek with extra tough boots on, and the water's up to my shins. So, like, my feet's freezing at this point, too.
But who cares?
Yeah, who cares? So, I picked this deer up, and the first thing I seen, his horn broke off in the sand. Yeah.
No.
It's this back one, the G2, broke off in the sand.
You can't even tell it.
No. The taxidermist Chris Owens actually fixed it for me. So he had to mold it to where it was. Like, he kind of, that's probably not exactly right. You know, that might not have been that short or that tall. You know, I have pictures of it. So I just sent him the picture, and he kind of went off it based off the other lengths of the horns. And I was like, oh, no. It's a 7-point, like, because the horn broke off. I was like, no, you know, I'm digging in the sand trying to find this other piece of this horn. Well, he could tell it was a fresh break, and he could have done it, you know, running through a limb, or, you know, it could have been cracked already from a fight. So I didn't really know. So I called my wife again. This time I FaceTime her. She's still at work. She's probably working on somebody's teeth, but I did not care, you know. So I'm FaceTime. I was like, I got him. You know, I'm so excited. And she was like, well, let me see him. I turn around. She's like, oh, good job, babe, whatever. And I was like, all right, I got to go, and just hung up. And I was like, I called Deep. I was like, when are you going to be here? I was like, because I got the deer out of the creek and on the bank. Where we had to drag it out of, I had to pull it back through the creek. So I pulled it out of the creek on one side, and I had to drag it right back through the creek to go to the buggy in the cow pasture, because thankfully the neighbor let us pull the buggy around there to the back corner to get the deer.
That's good.
And we're pulling this deer, me and my father-in-law is. He's a big factor in this, you know, his property. He's allowed me to hunt it. Super grateful for it, you know. And we're pulling, and probably one of the best moments I have with him, you know, we talk about how we get all caught up in these deer, but there's a moment there where he just stops pulling and just hugs me. You know, like, he's proud of me, because I've put in so much work trying to kill these deer, like, and he's seen it, and he knows it's my biggest one, and I hunt constantly when I can. So this is just a big achievement, and he's super grateful and happy for me, and that moment right there made it more than the deer did, you know?
Yeah.
So
that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and it gets even better. So, and anyways, so we get it loaded up. We're going through the pasture, and it falls out of the back of the truck. Now, or out of the back of the buggy. And you got to think, I still only have one arm. And the other ones, I'm having to hold it up in the air and and the tailgate keeps getting hung on the horns, and we can't get it up in the buggy. We finally get it back in there, and he's like, I'm driving. He's sitting back there, like, through the back of it, holding the deer on. Well, anyways, we get up there, and my very first deer was a 4-point. I shot at him 3 times with a single shot 223. So, and that was with my stepdad. And I love my stepdad. My stepdad has raised me to be the best person I can be. You know, he taught me so much. So I wanted him to be there he was there when I cleaned my first one and helped me find it. I wanted him to be there to help me clean my biggest one, and keep it out. And I waited until 11:30 that night till he could get there, because his mama had shot a buck, and they was looking for it across the county. So I waited on my stepdad to get there just so I could have that memory with him too. And I guess I've killed smaller deer, and yeah, it's my biggest one, and but the memories that went along with this deer, He was never there. Never seen this buck before. I never patterned him. These 2 big bucks are still out there. Like, that's got me excited too. That's going through my head, and I'm like, surely. Oh, and I missed. I done got excited in the mood to this. I'm sorry. So
It's good.
before this deer, at the beginning, my father-in-law came home and put a feeder up. My bucks disappeared for a while. I missed that whole part. Like, my bucks completely disappeared. When I went back there to hunt this one, I think I'd have to go back and look. I'm missing a time frame somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I just got excited with the
I
story.
know.
I'm sorry. I'm missing a time frame, and I'm sure I've messed up on it. I've had a lot going on through the past year or so. So I never had a picture of this buck deer, and the other ones wasn't back in there when I killed this one. Like, it had been a while since I got a picture of the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
After I killed this one, my mother-in-law went in there and shot a 7-point the next week of a nice 7-point that I watched run across the dirt road towards her. Like, I texted her, and I said, hey, there's a buck deer headed your way. He's on the creek. Like, I was headed to go meet my wife somewhere, and I decided to take the dirt road. And the buck ran across the dirt road right at the bridge, following the creek right towards her. And I texted her immediately, and I was like, hey, there's a buck headed your way. Be patient. Don't get out early. He's on the way. And it wasn't an hour later. I think I just made it to town. We got a text. She had shot the 7-point.
Wow.
And it looked identical to the one that I seen run across the road. So just all that work and all this stuff going on is what made this deer my.
So did you have that 7-point on camera too, or was it?
Yes,
a random?
he was on camera.
Okay.
But I think a lot of it too, the feeder. Of course, throwing a feeder out there right in season is going to screw them up bad because they're not used to that. And I think I had mentioned it to my father-in-law. I was like, hey, don't put that feeder up until like next summer. Like, you need to give them time to get used to it. And I think he just got excited and wanted to put it out because he knew that his daughter had been toting corn down there and all this. And he don't want his baby, working that hard. I felt bad about it because I killed this deer and she hasn't killed one yet down there. We're gonna get her one. They're still down there. That 9-point and that 8-point still down there. And they were down there at the end of the season, so they're still in there. Maybe this year is what I'm focused on, getting my wife one. So I probably won't be hunting by myself as much. I'm gonna try to take her as much as I can. I took a job closer to the house where I could be home to do that. So
I'm going to be following pretty close on Facebook. So I'm going to be waiting for that picture.
I'm hoping I can get her one. If you see me kill one this year, it's on public land. I'm going to take her to all these private places that I have. I say all of them. I got a few. Some of us just don't have luck. Like my cousin Mason Turner, Mason.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got the best luck ever when it comes to any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Mason, I could fall into a barrel of deer horns of Boone and Crockett's and come out with a spike. You know what I'm saying? He could fall into a bucket of spike horn and come out with a Boone and Crockett. It just
There's some people it's just that way.
He is, and it's the same way with his turkey hunting too. And Mason's a really good hunter. He pays attention, and I give him a hard time all the time, just telling him he's just lucky, like he ain't that good of a hunter, But no, Mason is a really good hunter, and
So I did not know that y'all were cousins.
yes, he is my first cousin.
I have actually reached out to him too about coming on the podcast, and right before we started recording, he sent a message that he could do it whenever. So
Yeah,
he'll be on soon too.
He'll probably talk about that big buck he killed this past year.
Yes, I told him to include that.
Yeah, he's really smart. He's a lot smarter than me. He gets to get out and do it a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like I said, I'm no pro, and I get to talking, and there's some things that I might not have made sense to you.
So I want to ask you this question. I really wish that Jansen was here because me and him have a different opinion on this. I'm more like deer going to travel.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't have a deer on camera, I'm assuming it's because he's not on that property.
I think I just heard y'all talk about
yeah,
this morning.
we talk about it a
Yeah.
lot. So in your situation, my opinion is that deer is probably passing through looking for does, rut. Jansen would be open to that as well. I don't want to speak for him while he's not here, but I think that he would be open to that as well. But he's more of the mindset that trail camera doesn't tell you everything.
Yes.
There's a very good chance that he was there the whole time. You just never got a picture of him. What do you think? Do you think that deer was on the property this whole time? Do you think that he was chasing a doe?
So I should have clarified this earlier. This might help a little bit too. So that doe that was there, she was flagging. Where he came out of was 30 yards behind her. And he never was paying attention to her. And I'd never seen another doe run across the backside. He was running the creek bottom, grunting. Could I have missed a doe back there? Yes. Should I have? No. Because I was paying attention the whole time. He wasn't after her. He never come toward the corn pile or towards her or anything. So do I think he was passing through, which is pretty much where I'm hunting. That's just a pass-through place anyway. Like I said, they have bedding, food, and a big cow pasture where they feed and all that stuff, which was before I started feeding them. Mm-hmm. That was just a 5-acre block. It probably ain't 60 yards wide back there where I'm hunting at on the property that I'm on. That's all it was to begin with. But to get back to your question, do I think that he was just passing through at that current time? I think he was there the whole time. I just don't think he was real concerned about what was going on in that area. Mm-hmm. So, of course, deer and rut is hard to say, because you can't really determine whether that buck's there or not. You can see a buck going to your property on a highway headed towards your property. That buck is in your area, but you never seen him on camera, So he could do that every day, and you never get a picture of him. Mm-hmm. Deer and rut, you can't really determine that. Not in my opinion, because that buck right there could have run 10 miles. He could have come from 10 miles away. But during the regular season, do I think that they have a specific place where they bed until rut? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really believe that. I don't think they just get up and just bed everywhere. Mm-hmm. I think there's that bedding area I had. I think he had been laid up in that for a while, and he was just kind of making his track right there. Because, like I said, it's a big track, and it's exactly a square. You have 2 dirt roads cutting it off, and I think he was running that whole block because I'm pretty sure I heard the neighbor say that he had seen that buck before. Like he had been hunting that buck or something like that. And where he's hunting at is 200 yards from where I'm hunting it.
Gotcha.
So I think he had been in the area there and just kind of made that 1,000-acre track over that little square, Mm-hmm. So
I think and this is kind of what, the more I think about it and the more conversations we have about this topic, I think it kind of comes down to how confident you feel in your trail camera placement, how many trail cameras you run on there.
I had 4 out down there in that bottom.
So there you go.
And now that was covering every angle. So I had 2 that wasn't even facing my corn.
So you have a really good idea then of what deer were there and what was not.
And I'd never seen him.
Gotcha.
But my neighbor had seen him, I think is what he told me. I can't remember. But I'm pretty sure when we come out of his gate, he was looking at the deer, and he's like, yeah, I think I have that one on camera. But now he could have confused that with that other 8-point that I had down there. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard to tell. It
really is. It's always a toss-up.
Yeah.
During the rut, all bets are off anyway. But all we can do on this stuff is guess anyway.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And just go with your gut feeling.
So I have a question for you, and I was really hoping the other guys would be here too because there's 2 questions. And I try to ask everybody that hunts. What do you consider doe management? So without management, you're going to have disease and all this. So you have to manage your does. Everybody goes and chases these buck deer or whatever it is. You have to manage your does. I had an old man tell me, he said, when you was 16 years old, you went where all the females was. You was a young buck.
Mm-hmm.
He said these mature bucks, you know, they might have 2 or 3. They're going to go where the older folks are. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to have just 2 or 3 ladies instead of you have 15 does. You're going to have a bunch of young bucks, you know, running around chasing does. Versus these 3, you managed your does. Now you got these few does that these big bucks are fighting over. Does that make sense?
It does.
So when it comes to managing your does on your property, how do you do that? Do you make it like 3 a year? I've heard of people basing it off of acreage.
So with me personally, I'm not going to speak for the other guys. But before I get started, I will say me and Jansen recorded a podcast a couple days ago, and we talk about this topic. I haven't edited that one yet, so it hasn't dropped. But you'll hear kind of what we talk about when it comes to doe management. And I brought up the question as because we're told, like you say, to shoot some does. And the idea that I bring up behind it is what you just said. The less does you have, the more the bucks have to travel. You'll see more buck sightings.
Yes.
Anyway, but part of me, I've never really done doe management because the properties that I've hunted have been other people's property that they give me access to. So I've never really tried to manage it like I would if it was mine.
Yeah. Okay.
But with that being said, there is a property this year that I want to do that on because there's a lot of does. And my thoughts on it are twofold. I feel like if I shoot those does, I'm taking away what's going to bring the bucks to me. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But on the other side, I totally understand the argument that if you kill those does, bucks are going to have to be on their feet.
So also, instead of just another thing you have to look at, instead of just shooting all these does, like say, I know my brother does 3 a year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't just go shoot 3 does. Like I'm trying to pick out the does I want to kill because does have.
We talk about this too.
Yeah. So does, if a doe has a set of twins, she's gonna have a set of twins 9 times out of 10 every year. So, and especially if they're bucks, I don't want to kill that doe. You know what I'm saying? So
well, too, if a doe is having twins, that's a pretty good indicator that she's very healthy.
Yes.
You have enough forage on the land to provide for that deer.
Yes.
So overpopulation is not really a concern if you see a doe having twins.
No, I agree. But now if I have this doe that really ain't doing it and she's old, and I'm gonna go back where the time I was the year before when I was chasing this buck, and I'm gonna look at the does that I had last year, because them does don't really travel like bucks do.
Right.
So you're liable to have a different set of bucks in there next year, and because they done run off there and rut. So.
Right.
With that being said, I'm going to go back and look at them does, and I'm going to be like, okay, well, this one had twins last year. If she has twins again this year, I'm going to leave her alone, Or this one was gray last year. She's probably 10 years old, and I'd probably get rid of her because she busted me 15 times last year. So that's I kind of try to base it on that, not just necessarily going out there and just killing 3 does.
Yeah.
What I would feel like would be the best decision as far as killing that doe. I don't believe in cold bucks. I just don't.
I talked to a guy that told me how he used to manage does, and he would pick and choose which ones as well. Like you said, if it was a doe that wasn't, producing
yeah.
fawns, that was one of the first ones to go. And if there was a doe with a button buck, where the horns hadn't broke through yet, it's just been born, a button buck, he would shoot that doe. And he said the reason being is when a buck gets old enough, the doe is going to run him off. And he's going to have to go find his own home range. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of nature's way to prevent inbreeding.
Yeah.
Okay. If you take that doe out, that buck's going to stick around because that's the only place that he knows. He's going to grow up on that land. His mother's not going to be there to kick him off. And he had a wall full of deer that he had done exactly that with. And he said, I watched every one of these deer, and there was 4 or 5 deer on this wall. Mm-hmm. He said, I watched every one of these deer grow up from a button buck. I said, dude, that's wild. So last year I did that. There was a doe that I had. She had twins. One was a doe fawn. The other was a button buck. The doe fawn ended up getting run over. The button buck at the very end of the season, I had gotten a new bow. So I thought this is going to be the perfect one to kill with. and took that doe out. The button buck is hanging around.
That's good.
So I'm really excited to see this button buck grow up. So I think that's another tactic that you can use for managing your does.
I'm gonna definitely try it on that 102 acres that this one come off of, because I really feel like that would produce more deer. So one more question I got for you, and this is, I loved. You're a school teacher, so in school my favorite thing was debate.
All right.
I love debate.
Gotcha.
The biggest debate that I've ever seen is crossbow hunting, bow hunting.
Oh, man. All right. You going first? You want me to?
Okay, so I will, and you can hit me with whatever.
Okay.
Because I'm ready.
All right.
I've thought about it. Veterans, children, disabled children, I think it should be considered bow hunting. If you with a crossbow, if you are healthy and you can get into a ladder stand or a climber or whatever, I don't think you should use a crossbow unless you're 100 years old. You know what I'm saying? So I don't necessarily consider crossbow hunting bow hunting. I think you're using something that's built like a gun. That's pretty much all it is. A gun that slings the arrow at 500 feet a second. When your bow is shooting 265, you can still shoot a deer at 100 yards with a crossbow. You're really not working no harder than you would with a gun. So you're taking away the challenge, I guess you would say, during like 30-yard shot. I'm 9 times out of 10 I ain't shooting a deer with my bow over 30 yards because I don't want to booger one up. I want to be completely comfortable with my shot, and I always set my stands up that way. That does make it harder for me to kill buck deer because of smell and scent and all that. That buck deer, I was wearing square toes and no scent remover, nothing. I just went in there because I decided I just wanted to go see it. So it just happened, It was luck. It was luck. It was Mason Turner luck.
I heard that. That's what I say about Jansen, too.
It was Mason Turner luck all day long.
Well, we have a different opinion on it, and that's totally fine. Totally fine.
Absolutely.
Here's my thoughts on it, because I've given this a lot of thought, too. And I've killed deer with crossbow. I still hunt with my crossbow when I feel like it. And here's why. So when I started hunting in areas where I could not shoot a gun, the easiest solution was a crossbow. Because if you buy a bow, if you want a decent bow, you're going to have to spend at least $500, I think.
And that's for an older bow. Now these bows are going for $1,300.
Right. But for a ready-to-hunt package like a bear or something, once you get the bow, some arrows, and a release, $500-600, that's when you can get to the woods.
Yeah.
Plus, you have to there is a lot more dialing that comes in with that bow.
Yes.
You have to practice with it a lot more. Of course. That's where the bigger challenge comes in.
Yes.
When I was looking at the bow, $500-600, or I could get this crossbow that comes with three bolts, and all I need to get is the broadheads, and for like $300, I'm out there. And here's another thing too that I always like to clarify if the crossbow conversation ever comes up. There are crossbows out there that can shoot like 100, 120 yards, 150 yards.
Yes.
I'm not talking about that kind of crossbow. My crossbow is like you say, I'm shooting out to 30, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because this joker is loud as all get out.
Yeah, there ain't no limb silencer.
No, it is as loud as all get out. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's kind of where I came from. It was a more cost efficient way to get into archery.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. So, all right, I'm gonna hit you right here. With that being said, it wasn't the way I was trying to phrase it. Wasn't really cost efficiency, I reckon you could say. It was capability is where I feel like it comes in, because you can buy a ready-to-go bow for $500, or I found them for $300, now they were older, same way with your crossbow. It was you, when you bought your crossbow to go hunting, was you capable of being able to comprehend and learn how to use a compound bow?
Oh yeah.
Okay, see, that's kind of where I'm kind of debating it at, because people that are able and can comprehend it. I ain't saying crossbow's wrong. Like, go shoot your crossbow. You know, if that's was easier for you and you.
Well, here's the other side of that too. As long as it's legal, go do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's a tool
Yeah.
that the state has given you. So as long as you're legal, do it. But here's the other things too that I'm going to throw in personally for me that affected my decision on that. The other thing is, like, I could care less what the haters say.
Oh, yeah.
I'm one of those that I'm going to go against the grain if I want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the biggest thing too that I guess why I'm kind of advocate for the crossbow, if you're entertaining the idea, is it gets you hunting.
Yes.
What gets you in the woods? Hunting. So that got me into that game. And then yes, after that, you know, I got my first real bow, compound bow, and then graduated into a better compound bow. The other thing, I really struggle to see in low light. I really struggle.
Okay. So that's an incapability that you have. You know what I'm saying?
And see, that was one thing that I really liked about the crossbow when I was using it consistently, because, I mean, not that I was night hunting, because obviously I was not.
Yeah.
Okay, but that scope does give you a little bit better aiming capability than looking through a peep sight.
Yes.
If you have low light capability.
Yes.
Anyway, and as a matter of fact, on my bow now, I've been shooting without a peep. Have you ever tried that?
Oh, down the arrow?
Yeah. Well, not down the arrow, but I took the peep out, and I'm just using a nose button. So, have you ever shot your bow in the dark, and you're trying to find your peep, and you just all right? So that's one thing that I really struggle with. And anyway, to help that, I took the peep out, nose button. It opens up your side picture. You can see in low light a lot better. So I'm going to try that this year.
Let me know how that goes.
Okay, I will.
Because
I've been shooting with it, and it's going pretty good. But
there was something else I was going to say. I'm sure.
I like that you brought up the crossbow stuff, because I do enjoy talking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's all personal preference. You know, I don't doubt.
But I totally
either
see
side.
where you're coming from. Like, at some point, you don't want
You've
to
got
just
to
keep
challenge
knocking
yourself.
down deer. You want to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly
You
right.
don't want it to be easy every time you go. I grew up shooting bows. I don't know if you did. Did you grow up shooting compound bows as a youngin? Did you have a compound bow?
So I did not. I don't really know how to answer that question. I wasn't young. I don't know how young you were when you started.
I was
like,
in kindergarten.
No, absolutely not. I was probably 12 or 13 when I got my first bow, and it was one that my brother-in-law. No, I'm sorry. My dad bought for me, and it was an old used bow, and my brother-in-law helped me set it up. And I never killed a deer with it. I could shoot decent with it. I went hunting with it some, but I never got serious about it.
I want you to ask Mason when he comes on.
About the crossbow?
Yes.
Okay.
If you can remember, you need to ask him.
Okay.
Because we kind of, I ain't going to say that our answers are going to be the same, because we're around different people, you know? And I also think that has a lot to do with it, who you're around. I'm sure you're around more people that use crossbows and compound bows. I'm not. Everybody that I'm around uses compound.
I'm kind of look. I'm probably going to get roasted when we drop this episode. Okay, and that's perfectly okay. But most people that I talk to, I've only encountered one other guy. And he was a student of mine last year. That was like, he was on board with the crossbows, and usually I'm the only one. That's okay. I'll be the lone voice.
I mean, you do you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just feel like if you're able to, you should take the time.
Well, challenge yourself.
Yeah, and challenge yourself. It's
I
gonna
agree.
make that, even if it's a basket rack 6-point or a 4-point, it's gonna make that deer mean more to you, because you're gonna look back also on how far you've come from the beginning.
Here's another example when I've talked about this to people before. Nothing wrong with bait. We all do it. We covered
absolutely.
that.
Whoever says they don't, they're lying. Everybody baits deer.
Yeah. All right. So tell me which the better hunter would be. Would it be the compound bow shooter sitting over a pile of corn, or would it be the crossbow shooter that is on public land? He has scouted, and he has found a deer natural travel route, and he kills a deer that way.
How far is that shot? And how far is that shot?
Just say it's both 30.
Both 30. That's
It's
hard.
Exactly.
That's hard.
It is.
See.
So there's gray areas in there.
Yeah, there absolutely is.
And it's kind of situational
He did
based.
put in more work, but I feel like since he put in all that work, he had the capability of being able to shoot a compound bow.
Okay, you're right.
You know what I'm saying?
You're
He
right.
did all that scouting.
Yeah.
If you can walk around that much, you can learn how to shoot a bow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like
And I
when
will
you
say,
shoot a deer with your bow, does it not mean more than when you shoot it with your rifle?
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So you have something that, yeah, it's an arrow, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a rifle at the same time. So that compound bow, just that swack,
Yeah.
you know, that you hear.
oh, there's nothing like it now.
It makes me tremble. You know,
Yeah.
and I love it.
And here's the thing too. So I'm pretty sure that I can remember when compound bows were really starting to make leaps forward in popularity and efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
That I can remember like the recurve guys and the traditional bows being like, "Oh, if you're hunting with a compound bow, you're not. That's cheating." I can remember that.
Okay, I see that. I got that at bow tournaments. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So I was around a bunch of traditionals.
Yeah,
And
and I think mindsets like that are always going to be in hunting. I think at some point crossbows, unless something changes legally with the state,
Well, they make them air now.
they make them what?
So you have an air gun that shoots an arrow.
Yeah.
And it's built just like a rifle. So now, and it's shooting just as fast as a crossbow.
Mm-hmm.
But that's on my bucket list, traditional. I
Same.
don't care if it's a doe.
Same.
I don't care if it's a small doe. I just want to kill one with a long bow or a recurve.
Yeah.
So that is definitely on my list to do. 100%.
Same. I want to do that. I tried a couple years ago to do it, and it didn't work out. I was hunting off the ground. Terrible. It didn't work out. But man, I've enjoyed having you on the podcast. We need to do it again sometime.
Oh yeah. Well, I got a turkey hunting story from Nebraska up there while I was working too.
Really?
For a little kid.
Look, we need to get you on. So Jansen and Talon are the big turkey hunters.
Okay, so I'm not a huge turkey hunter, but I can call a turkey.
You can?
Decent enough to get him in, you know,
Really?
to kill him. I called in 5 for my buddy, and he missed every one of them in Nebraska.
Good night.
And I finally looked at him, and I was like, hey, man, it's my turn. But now Nebraska is totally different from here. You can whistle at a turkey, and he'll come in Nebraska. So, and that at least that's how it was where I was at. So I wouldn't even really call that turkey hunting. But now the little kid that I took, that was a turkey hunt. And I had my camera. That was going to be the first hunt I ever recorded. Left it at the hotel room that I was staying in.
Really?
Yeah, and it would have been phenomenal. So that was probably the best hunt I'll ever have in my life. I was in Nebraska working up there toward Lincoln. I was riding around looking because April 16th is turkey season in Nebraska. That's opening day.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to turkey hunt so bad. I brought all my camouflage up there. I didn't even have nowhere to hunt. I didn't know if there was any public land closed. So I rode around. I found a group of turkeys in a field, and I pulled up this guy's house, and I was like, hey, can I please hunt these turkeys? And he was like, oh, yeah, there's 2 other guys that hunt here. If they're here, you just can't. You know, if their vehicles ain't here, go ahead. So he said, but if you do go, do you mind taking my grandson? I said, absolutely. I'd love to. You know, I told him straight up, I was like, I'm no pro turkey hunter. Mm-hmm. I suck. I'm good with I'm decent with a slate call. I can't use a mouth call or crap. Don't ask me to. I can purr a little bit with it. You know? But I'm not a Mason Turner. Like, he's just good at that. Mason Turner is phenomenal at it. But we sat down, and I told him, I was like, you're gonna have to be still, you know. 2 owls pitched up right above us, and their owls are totally different from ours. Ours is like real raspy. We got time. We still got good.
Yeah, we should be good.
Okay, so their owls like real raspy up there. Daybreak. I swear on everything, 20 gobblers around this green field. The trees lit on fire. You had anywhere from mature toms to jakes. And where we was set up was like a fallen tree, and we was up under it, and I could see the turkey. And the little kid could see the turkey. He was 8, probably 9. I can't remember. His name was Tim. His name was Timmy. They called him Tim. And he was a super cool little kid. Like, he listened really well. You know, most of them just antsy.
Mm-hmm.
We sat there, and the birds did not pitch down out of the tree until 9:30.
Golly.
Yeah, and they all gobbled their head off until 9:30. And when they hit the ground, they shut up. They didn't say a word. I was like, you gotta be kidding. Because I told him, I was like, we're about to kill this bird.
Yeah.
Like, he's on fire. You know, all of them's on fire. You know, you could whistle at them and they would all gobble. He hit the ground and none of them said a word. And now right in front of us is a creek and a 300-acre green field that I do not have permission on.
Mm-hmm.
I have permission all the way to the creek, but not on the other side. So, anyways, we sat there until like 10:30. We've been there since before daylight. It's 10:30 now, and I was like, "Listen, we need to do something," because I didn't want to move and that turkey be headed towards us instead of to the green field. So I was like, "Hey, sit still. I'm gonna crawl up here 100 yards." I barely crawled 100 yards to look into this green field, and with my binoculars, and every one of them was in this green field. I thought. And so we got up, and I was like, let's move. And it's from here to the wall. We have one little section from here to the wall to the creek. And then across the creek is the green field. Well, at this time, we're sitting there, and we're watching all these birds, and they're feeding back and forth. And I was like, all right, we need to get out of here. It's like, at this time, it's probably 1-ish in the afternoon. We've been there all day. Mm-hmm. And I'm committed. And patience is key with turkeys. I've learned that. You have to chase them. You got to cut them off. A lot of times calling don't help. So, I say a lot of times. The people that can call it helps. I can't call, so it don't ever help me. He was like, well, just call one more time. Just like that. That's how he whispered it to me. I said, okay. I just clucked and purred. 15 yards. I mean, lit on fire. I said, oh. That's exactly what I said. And I mean, you know, sorry for cussing. And I was like, get your gun ready. Like, if he comes out, he's going to be close. He's either going to pick up and fly across this creek, or he's going to walk right in front of us. Because back behind is a thicket. There ain't no way he's going through there when it's an open path right here. We sat there just to watch them birds in that field. He shot that bird. He come out of the side of the bush in between us and the creek. He shot that bird from here to that desk.
Golly.
That close. And he blew up and drumming right there.
That's like less than 10 yards.
Yes, less than 10 yards. And he had his little 20 gauge, you know, his used model 20 gauge that his granddaddy bought him. The funnest hunt I've probably ever been on. Just the smile on his face.
Yeah.
I got a picture of it somewhere. I'll have to find it.
Yeah.
And send it to you.
Send it to me if you can find it, and I'll put it on here.
I've been through 4 phones since then, so maybe my iCloud's backed up. But
Maybe so.
It was phenomenal. I loved every second of that.
That's what it's all about.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it's all about.
So.
Well, I have enjoyed having you on. Great conversation. I'm glad you brought up the crossbow stuff. I kind of been wanting to talk about that on here. I listen to the guys on the Hunter podcast talk about it all the time.
I do too.
That and baiting they always talk about, and they have very strong opinions on it. But we'll have to do it again. I want you to get Hope to kill a good deer on that land, and let's do another podcast, and y'all tell the story about it.
Okay, I'll do
good?
that. That's the goal this year, to
All
get
right.
her a good one.
All right. Well, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it, or thanks for listening if you're listening on the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll catch you next time.